Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic, sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 2009. What's tonight's topic? Genealogy FAQs. That's right. We're talking frequently asked questions. So we're answering your most common family history questions. If you have a question, pop it into the comments, and we will make an effort to try and get to them live tonight. If not, and you're watching the recording and putting them in there, then we'll get to them on the next session of our FAQs. So what do we have for you tonight? Oh, first of all, I have to make a public apology to Zeffie because I accused her of getting into the dog biscuit box yesterday, and she didn't. She actually had a dog biscuit that I had previously given her hidden amongst some boxes, and that was the noise that I heard when I thought she was getting into the dog biscuit box. So yes, we have sorted that out. So yeah, we figured out what happened. So we're good. Okay. So like I said, tonight we're going to be answering the most frequently asked questions about family history research. And so here we go. So if you have any questions, just send them on in. We're happy to put them in there. But the first question we always get asked is, how do I start researching my family history? Okay. So there's three things we're going to do. Is first of all, we're going to get pen and paper out, and or pen and paper or a computer, and you're going to write down names, birth dates, marriages, death dates, locations for as many relatives as you possibly can, for you, your family, your siblings, your parents, your grandparents, and just keep going. Write out everything you know, including and put in there when you're doing the birth, marriage, and death dates and places. Also put in there, if you remember a story about them or something that they told you or an occupation that they had, write down everything that you can remember about those people, everything. Talk to your family members. Older relatives may have valuable stories, documents, and even family heirlooms. And use free online resources like websites like familysearch.org and Find a Grave offer extensive records. And don't skip any generations. Always work from yourself backwards, verifying each connection with documentation. And we've done a few videos about citing sources and all of that too. But a really good book is Evidence Explained. It's like the Bible on how to cite sources for just about everything. You can also, you can also start keeping your records on familysearch.org. Ancestry.com, they I don't know if they still have their free trial available. They did have, I don't know if they still do. And myheritage.com is the other one. Ancestry and MyHeritage, there is a charge to use them, a subscription, and you can do monthly, you can do quarterly, you can do 6 months and annually. I do the annual one. I know when it's coming. Familysearch.org is completely free to use. But just be cautious with that because people can access your tree and can make changes. And I've even gone into some of the trees where my ancestors' information has been held. And because I keep track of everything and I've got my sources and stuff, I was able to correct some information that was in there. And when you go to correct information, it asks you why you are correcting it. If you have to correct something on familysearch.org and that little box comes up asking you why you're correcting this, and then it asks you for proof, put your sources, cite your sources in there so that they can go and check and go, oh yeah, she is actually right. And trust me, it becomes very important because I had somebody who shifted things back to what it was. And I was able to contact them through Family Search. And I said, look, excuse me, but this is my family tree. Why do you keep changing this information? It is incorrect. Here is the sources for the correct information. So she finally relented and stopped changing it every time I changed it. So you get weird things like that. The next question is, how can I break through a brick wall in my research? I kind of love this because I like looking up different sources, not the regular sources, to try and find information. I just like to dig. I like digging. Ways that you can break through your brick walls is expand your search. Try spelling variations, nicknames, wildcards. Like, for example, if you put in JOH with an asterisk, it could be for John, Jonathan, or Johan. So you can, Johan, where did they come from? Johan, sorry. So it'll pick up any first names that begin with JOH. and then the asterisk is for as many letters as possible. If you're looking for a particular spelling and you know that there could be one letter that's different, put a question mark in there. Look beyond direct ancestors. So instead of just looking at your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and keep going back, also look at their siblings, your cousins, neighbors, business associates. And you go, neighbors and business? Yes, you can find information about your ancestors through neighbors and business associates. It's part of the FAN, the friends, associates, and neighbors. So that's basically what it's got listed there. And when you're researching siblings and cousins, you can also find information that leads back to your ancestors as well. Use different types of records: land deeds, wills, tax lists, newspaper archives. I love going through the newspapers. You can get some really cool stories in newspapers. I've come across some very interesting stories over the years in newspapers. I thought, I wonder what happened to that person that was in the newspaper article. So I started a little mini tree, not my main tree, but just a little mini tree that was a standalone tree, and just put the people's information in there so it would do the automatic searches for me. But then I also started going on to find other records as well, and found out what had happened to them and all that sort of thing. So sometimes things spark your interest, and I just go, and it's good practice as well. For looking at different places. So checking things like land deeds. And when you're checking land deeds, you're not just looking for the person who's purchasing the land deed, you're also looking for their witnesses as well, because your ancestor may be listed as a witness to the land deed. The same with wills. They may be listed as a witness. They may not be they may be a beneficiary. They may be listed as a witness, or it could be their own will. Tax lists. I haven't really looked at a lot of tax lists. No, I haven't looked at a lot of tax lists, but newspaper archives, I love those ones. Check migration patterns. If your ancestors disappeared, they may have moved west or changed names. So look for those. If you can't find someone in a census, search for their children or siblings, because family members were often recorded differently. And I have seen in one street where I knew that a family was, living, because the matriarch of the family was very business savvy. And what she had done is she had gone and purchased houses within her street so that her children had somewhere to live, and they paid her rent. When she passed away, they inherited the house that they were living in. So often looking at the neighbors, and because she had a very heavy accent from the country she was from, her children were all born within the United States, so they didn't have the heavy accent. So they were able to so we started looking for the children, and that's how we found the matriarch of the family, was because we're looking for the children, and we found the children living in that street, and we knew already that the matriarch of the family had purchased houses in the street. So when we found them, we were able to trace it back to her, and we were able to go down that listing in the census and find her in there as well. And the U.S. Census records are available on Ancestry, Family Search, Chronicling America, which is history newspapers. You've got newspaper.com, you've got newspaperarchives.com, you've got GenBank, all have different newspapers ranging from in the US to other places around the world. Our number three question. Okay, we're going to go with that. Was my ancestor's name really changed at Ellis Island? This is a myth buster. Names were not changed at Ellis Island by officials. They were recorded based on the ship manifests created before arrival. And why names changed? Many immigrants changed their names later to assimilate, simplify spelling, or match phonetic pronunciation. And where to look for original names? Look on passenger lists, naturalization records, because on naturalization records, they have to put their original name that matches their passports and other traveling documents that they had. And birth and marriage certificates as well is another place that you can find the original names. When you search for immigration records in your ancestry's home country as well, because you will have the immigration, so they're leaving. Immigration's coming in, immigration. So with the I is coming in, with the E is leaving. So check your ancestors' home country for departure lists that may have different spellings as well. And you can look at ellisisland.org. I tell you, that is a fascinating site to go to. And castlegarden.org, which has pre-Ellis Island records. I tell you, you find interesting stuff. My I found my husband's great uncle. Was he a great uncle or just an uncle? Yeah, great uncle. Who would play, was a pianist, and he would play the piano on cruise ships. He's listed many times in at Ellis Island, because that was, the ships would come in, the cruise ships would come in, they would have to go through Ellis Island to be processed. And so he was doing that quite often when he was coming back into the States from being on a cruise playing the piano. So we found him many times there on Ellis Island. It's kind of interesting what you can find. How accurate are DNA tests for genealogies? Question number 4. They are great for finding biological relatives, confirming ancestry origins, and solving family mysteries. DNA will show you that you are blood related. Genealogy shows you how you are related. Yes, I have seen charts out there that go with, if you're within these centimorgans, then you're probably this, you're probably a half sibling, full sibling, an aunt, an uncle. It will put in there suggestions on, if you have these many centimorgans in common, then you're more than likely this type of a relative, which causes great confusion. Trust me. And they're not always accurate. I had shared a lot of centimorgans with my aunt, and it told me that she could have been my sibling or a parent. Sibling, I think it was. And I went, yeah, no. First cousin, that's what it was, first cousin. And I went, no, she's my aunt. The limitations are ethnicity estimates vary between companies due to different references of populations that they have. The more samples that are sent in, the better the better the estimates get. And I'm going to slip this one in here too. When you are looking at, always get as many people in your family to test as possible. So if it's you and you've got your siblings, get all your siblings to test, because you get different chromosomes from each parent. Each parent gives you, oh God, how many is it? 26, 23. However many, you get 50% of your chromosomes from mum, 50% of your chromosomes from dad, and they are different. When, oh God, this is going to go back to preconception. So when they are getting ready, the body goes into doubling the amount of chromosomes that are in the body, and it mixes them. It goes through this mixing process. The only 2 chromosomes in your strand that do not alter is the X chromosome and the Y chromosome, because they are definite. Y chromosome is always passed from male to male, father to son, always. No females get the Y chromosome. And in very, very rare cases, they can get part of the Y chromosome, in very rare cases. And then the X chromosome is passed from mother to child. And so there's no mixing of those 2 chromosomes. But the other ones, they get mixed up and then they get distributed out. So you do not get the same set of chromosomes as your siblings do, which means when it comes to DNA matching, you may find that you have a DNA match with a cousin that your sibling may not have a match to. And it doesn't mean that they are not related. It just means they got a set of chromosomes that doesn't have that shared DNA in there. It has happened. It happens all the time. So just remember that. So that's why it's the more DNA testing you can get done within your family, the better picture you get of your DNA family. The better DNA picture you get, the more people you can find through DNA matches. Okay, so the best strategy is to compare results across multiple DNA testing companies and use historical records to verify connections. The first one I did was Family Tree DNA, then I did 23andMe, and then I did Ancestry DNA. MyHeritage also does MyHeritage DNA, but I actually took my my raw data from Family Tree DNA and uploaded it into MyHeritage, so it's sitting there. And I've uploaded it. What's the other site? There's another site I've uploaded it to, which is a big, broader network of things. I can't remember that one. Can't remember the name of that one, but there's another. But they don't do the testing. You can just upload your raw data to it. But yeah, and there was some variations between them, but it wasn't a lot. Surprisingly, when I did the test, because I ended up doing the 3 tests because I wanted to see how big of a difference is there. And by doing the 3 tests, I now have access to 3 different genealogy pools of data, because not all my relatives, the ancestors and all that, have done DNAs in all 3. they've either done this one, or this one. And so now I've got access to all three. And in my main tree, I will put there that they are a DNA match. And then I will put a comment there that says verified DNA match on 23andMe, verified DNA match on Family Tree DNA. So I've actually put it, so if it's not through Ancestry, I'm putting where I got the information from. How do I find my ancestors before 1850? Church records. Baptisms, marriages, and burials will often predate government records. The church kept a log of everything that happened in the church, all the events that happened at the church, baptisms, marriages, burials, anything else that was banns being read, which is part of marriages. In some churches, they require banns to be read. You can also check land, tax, and military records. And many earlier records were tied to property ownership at service. Look at historical newspapers, announcements, obituaries, and legal notices can provide family details. And I will tell you this, newspapers, people are going on about paparazzi and all that. Newspapers have been a huge source of gossip for years, decades, centuries. Like they used to put in there, Mr. Peter Jones was admitted to hospital with a broken arm. He is expected to be there for 5 days. And then 5 days later, and then like maybe 3 days later, you might get Mr. Jones is recovering well and is expected to be released from hospital in 2 days. And then you go 2 days later, Mr. Jones got released to go home to 123 Main Street, blah, 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 blah. They actually give the address. Yeah. It's crazy. It's really, really crazy. So pre-1850 research is all about piecing together indirect evidence. So you don't rely on a single source. If you find them in a newspaper, go, yes, that's it. No, go find other records that can help back that up. The more records you can find about that thing, the more true the records become. You can also look at the Bureau of Land Management land records and Fold 3. Fold 3 is military records, and they're not just US. You can find some, like I've found some of my relatives on Fold 3 who served in the Royal New Zealand Army. And so I found some records that way as well. And they may just give their registration card. They may give, some of them they give like their full packet, and others they just give you the registration cards when they registered to for enlistment and all that. When they were doing the drafts and things, you had to go and fill in registration cards. And based on the age group you were in as to whether or not, you got called up. Question number 6, how can I engage my kids and grandkids in genealogy? Make it fun. I mean, I love talking to kids about, excuse me, itchy nose. I love talking to kids about their genealogy without them knowing that that's what we're actually doing. You can try a family history scavenger hunt or a storytelling night. And I love telling them stories about their grandparents, their aunts, their uncles, from what I know, from the interactions that I have had, telling them stories from, how much I've known them and things like that. So that's pretty cool. And often when I'm babysitting the older 3, the oldest one will turn around and will ask me a question about Papa, who was Brad. And so I would answer his question and then put a story in there with it as well. Use technology. Family tree apps, interactive maps, and ancestry games can make history exciting. If they see if there's a historical event that they're studying for school or something like that, they could be studying a particular event, and you go, well, your grandfather was involved in that, and this is how he was, and now it's suddenly come up more alive for them because, oh, my grandfather was in that. Oh. And so now they have something extra that they can put in their school report, or that if they're having to do an oral report, they can put that in there as well. But they now have something extra to add to that makes it come alive for them because they have a personal connection to that event through one of their ancestors, or an aunt or an uncle, or a sibling or a cousin, things like that. So let's see, show kids how they resemble their ancestors in old photos. This is a really cool exercise to do. So my mum and dad went up to visit my brother and his wife and their children. It's a very blended family. And my sister-in-law had just had my nephew. And so they went up there to meet the newest member of the family. And he was 8 weeks old when they went to meet him. So they took up a picture of my brother when he was 8 weeks old and other photographs that they had of my brother throughout his life. And they were telling stories about my brother and showing the photographs and all of that sort of thing. I really would have loved to have been there. I would have added my 2 cents in. But they had this picture of my brother when he was 8 weeks old, which was a spitting image of his son at 8 weeks old. And Mum sent me the picture with the 2 of them side by side. The only difference was one was in black and white, one was in color. Apart from that, the baby was identical. It was absolutely amazing to watch that. And I love looking back at old family photographs and going, oh my gosh, that looks like da-da, and that looks like that person, and that looks like that person. And it's really interesting. And my second great grandmother, she got married twice. Her first husband died in a mining accident. So then she got married again. And so she had already had some children with the first husband. Then she got married again and had more children. But in that photograph that was my second great grandmother. And in my photograph was her daughter, who is my great grandmother. And I looked at that and I thought, oh, that looks like my grandmother when she was young. And then I looked at it again and it looks like one of my cousins when she was around the same age. So it's really, if you haven't done that, go back and look at some old family photographs and just see who looks like who, what traits have you got? Is your nose the same as that person? Do they have the same shaped eyes? Do they have that same curly hair? So you can start seeing where things come from. And it's pretty cool to do that. Tell engaging stories. Focus on dramatic events, adventures, and personal triumphs as well, because children will learn through the struggle, that their ancestors had these struggles and how they overcame those struggles to have their triumphs. And you never know, that little story may trigger something in their brains that if they get in a similar situation, they now know how to handle it. But it's a lot of fun learning about that and some of the things. And children connect better to history when they see themselves in the story. So highlight relatable traits and experiences. So things that get passed down through the genes and that, you've got how they look. Oh, look, you look like great uncle Bob. And this was one of the challenges that he had, and put the dramatic story in there. And now they can picture themselves in there because they saw a picture of Uncle Bob and great uncle Bob. And yes, it does look like them at the same age. And there's different resources that you can use to help bring them alive, like Storyworth, Animoto, which is video storytelling, and Ancestry's Storyview as well. Number 7, what should I do if I uncover a family secret? This is a very common question that we get, and it is one that needs to be handled delicately. First of all, you have to verify the information. Cross-check DNA results, conflicting records before assuming the worst. So if you come across the secret, is it actually a secret? Did everybody know about it? But have your research there. Back it up with documentation. As much documentation as you can find, as many records as you can find about that incident or about that secret, get it in there and find as much information as you can to ensure that it is actually true before you consider taking it. Then you also have to consider the impact. Oh, now hang on. One thing about the DNA things. When you are managing somebody's DNA and you ask them to do a test and they agree to do the test, part of that, there is actually an agreement that, first of all, you have to let them know that there could be surprises and they may not be pleasant. And that part of the signing the agreement with them is that you will give them complete confidentiality. So if something comes back in the DNA that may prove that this person you're doing the DNA test on may not be the biological child of one of the parents, zip it. You cannot go to that parent and ask them questions. You can only tell the person whose test it belongs to, that the test belongs to. And do I have no, I don't have it here. There's actually a book that talks about the DNA testing and how to do it if you're managing somebody else's, how to manage their account. So if you find something that means that they may not be the biological child of one of their parents, you can't go to that parent and ask for the story. You cannot do that. Then you have to you can only talk to the person whose DNA test it is. That's part of the confidentiality. Even if you're not a professional genealogist, it is one of those things that's kind of required by anybody who's managing DNA things. So when it comes to you found these secrets out, you've got to consider the impact. Some relatives may not be ready to hear unexpected discoveries. You can kind of dance around it if it's not DNA related, kind of dance around it a little bit and just get a feel for it by asking indirect questions about that to see what comes out, if anybody talks about it and all that, and then decide how to share the story. Approach difficult topics with empathy and understanding. Every family has secrets. How you handle them matters. Don't just waltz in and go, oh, guess what? And everybody's going like sitting there like deer in headlights, and somebody is completely beat red because they knew about it and hadn't told anybody, or they were part of the thing and they wanted to keep a secret. Every family has their secrets. How you handle them matters. Seek out family elders who might provide additional context before sharing widely. Only do that if you have the permission from the person whose DNA it is, that you have permission to go and talk to these people after you have told them what you've uncovered. And they may turn and go, no, I want to handle this myself. And that's fine. You step back. Bonus resources, a DNA painter. This is for genetic genealogy analysis. I have not learned how to use a DNA painter yet. It looks interesting, but there's so much about DNA to learn. This is one of the parts that I haven't learned yet. And then you've got online genealogy support groups as well that you can access. And the last question we have on here is, how can I organize my genealogy research? Number one, use a research log. Track searches and to avoid repeating work. And even if you go to that site and there is nothing there, document it. You went to this website, there was no information. So that you don't go back again, wasting time redoing that search, only to find that you've already done that and there was no records available. Digitize documents, scan important records and photos for safekeeping. I use a program called Forever, in which I can put folders in there, and in those folders I can make each, I can do like a general, I can do a folder in there that will have each person's name in there. It'll have their birth year and death year, and then anything in there is their documents, copies of documents that I've sourced, as well as photographs that I've sourced, and anything I've sourced about that person. Photographs, documents, they're all in there. And then you've got a description area where you can type some more stuff in there. And use genealogy software. Programs like Family Tree Maker and Roots Magic can help keep trees organized. Now, these are offline programs that you actually have on your desktop or your computer or your laptop. But they, I'm not sure about Roots Magic, but Family Tree Maker will sync with Ancestry. So you've got that backup there as well. And backup. Have a backup of a backup of a backup of your GED com files. Those are the files that genealogy programs use. Set aside a time each month to review and clean up your research, and you'll spot new connections faster when you're doing that as well. As you're going through and looking through your research logs and keeping and organizing files and that, you may think, well, hang on, I just saw that over, where's that? Ah, there it is. And you've got them and you match them together, and it's sort of like, oh. And doing it that way, you may find the key to bring down your brick wall. Evernote for research notes, Google Drive for document storage. I use them both. You can also use a program called Trello, which is like digital Post-it notes, where you have these cards that you can move to different columns and things. And it's a good place to keep like a to-do list. I like my little Post-it notes that I stick up on the wall. Haven't been able to do it here because I've got textured walls. Plus the landlord doesn't want you to put anything on the wall. So I have to improvise. I have a whiteboard that has it on there. Our question, hang on. Did I finish that? Yes, I did. So Evernote for research notes, Google Drive. And in Evernote, they also have templates. They have a bunch of templates as well. So you can go in and have a look. And they have some really good genealogy templates. I've been trying different ones and having a look at them. And there's some very interesting stuff in there. And somebody did a great job on some of those genealogy ones on doing the notes and things like that. But you can keep your research notes in there. You can go to Google Drive for document storage as well. And if you're writing the story as you go and writing, and you're doing if you've got a report to your client, like once a week, that's the time that when you go through and you organize everything that you write the report, and you keep the running notes as well. So you've got them that you can go back to, so you can then pass that information on to your clients as well. So send us your biggest genealogy question, and we might make it a feature in a future episode of Frequently Asked Questions. If you need help breaking down a brick wall, visit yourfamilytreedetective.com for expert assistance. And share and this is a social media challenge for you. Share a surprising family discovery and tag us with hashtag Genealogy FAQ. And so we can go find them, because I like seeing different questions and things. So I hope this helps answer some of the burning questions that you've had. And remember, family history is a journey. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Every discovery brings you closer to understanding your roots. And by understanding your roots, you can understand more about who you are. So with that, we are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening. And we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific.